The ice moon Haven 9 spun slowly in the cold darkness of space. Far from any sun, its surface buried under endless snow and silence. Long ago, it had been a busy trade stop between the outer systems, but now it was forgotten, abandoned, and frozen. Nothing moved across its empty plains, except for a single small figure. A young alien girl, barely in her teens, struggled through the snow, her thin body shivering, skin pale and frostbitten. Her species, the Nyari, were not made for cold, and her kind had always lived in warm, glowing forests on distant worlds. Oh, that home was gone. Her breath came in shallow gasps as the storm thickened around her, howling winds whipping her. Long violet hair across her face, her hands were bare, her clothes were thin. Every step was slower than the last. She had no direction left. She didn't even know why she was still trying to walk. Her legs gave out beneath her and she fell, face first into the snow. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply closed her eyes and let her mind slip away, the cold wrapping around her like a final blanket. Far above the moon, in orbit, a different story was unfolding. The human deep space warship Valkyrie's Wrath had just passed the system. When its sensors picked up something strange, Commander Jason Rourke stood on the bridge, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen showing a faint signal coming from the surface. It was weak, just a single life form, barely alive, buried in the middle of a blizzard. Most officers would have ignored it. But Jason Rourke was not most officers. His jaw clenched slightly. He had seen enough lost souls in his time to know what death looked like. "You've got someone down there," he said. "One life form, still breathing. For now." Captain Ayla Grant, his second in command, stepped beside him. "We're already behind schedule. High Command wants the tech crates at 05 within 48 hours. We can't afford any delays." Jason didn't blink. "Then tell them we'll be late." He turned and walked out of the command deck without another word. Ayla sighed, but didn't stop him. When Jason made a decision, nothing moved him, not orders, not fear, not even war itself. Minutes later, the ship's small dropship roared through the thick atmosphere of Havanine. Engines burning hot against the freezing winds. The storm nearly blinded the pilot, but Rourke was at the controls, his hands steady even as the ship shook violently. He landed hard, metal groaning from the pressure, but the moment the doors opened, he didn't hesitate. Snow blasted inside. The temperature dropped like a knife. Rourke stepped into it wearing a thick black exosuit, his boots crunching deep into the white ice. He moved fast. He had only minutes before the cold would kill whoever was down there. Visibility was nearly zero. The wind screamed like an animal. The scanners in his visor flickered with static, but still he pressed on. Then he saw her, a small body half buried in the snow. No movement, no sound. He dropped to his knees, brushing the snow away from her face. Her skin was pale blue. Her lips were cracked and still, but when he touched her neck there, a heartbeat. Faint. Barely there, but real. Without wasting another second, he scooped her up in his arms, holding her tight against the warmth of his suit. The cold reached for her, tried to take her back, but he held on and ran. The storm hit harder now, slamming into him like a wall. His boots slipped. He stumbled. He nearly fell. But the fire inside him burned hotter than the ice. He would not let go. He reached the ship, shouted for liftoff, and the engines roared to life. Snow and ice blasted into the sky as the dropship punched through the clouds, carrying them both up to safety. But peace didn't follow. Last they climbed out of the storm, Ayla's voice crackled through the coms. "Commander, you need to see. This, we're not alone. A ship just decloaked above us. No ID. They're locking weapons." Jason looked down at the fragile girl in his arms. Her chest barely rose. Her hands twitched weakly. Her eyes fluttered but didn't open. "Just saved her from death," he whispered to himself. "I'll be damned if someone takes her now." His voice turned hard as steel as he faced the rising threat above. Ready all weapons. We protect her at all costs. The dropship shook as it broke through the thick clouds. Wind screaming against its hull while ice crystals scattered across the cockpit window like tiny knives. Commander Jason Rourke gripped the controls tightly, flying blind through the worst Storm Havanine had thrown at him so far. Snow swirled so hard that the scanners struggled to mark his position. Everything outside was white, thick, and wild, but he didn't slow down. Somewhere in that storm was a young alien girl, and he had no time to waste. The signal he tracked was growing weaker by the second, barely holding on, like a candle flickering in heavy wind. He scanned the surface again and saw the faint pulse. Of life nearby? Engines flared as he dropped lower, cutting through the blizzard. The moment the landing gear touched down, Jason was already out of his seat, grabbing his gear and storming into the cold. His exosuit held back most of the chill, but even he felt the bite in the air. The storm slammed into him with sharp winds that almost knocked him off his feet. He moved fast, relying on the suit's guidance systems, following the weak life. Sign that flickered ahead like a ghost. Snow reached his knees, ice scratched at his visor, and the world felt frozen in time. Then, through the thick blur of white, he saw a small shape in the snow. It didn't move. His heart jumped as he rushed forward. The closer he got, the clearer she became a girl, small and fragile, lying curled up in the snow like a broken bird. Her skin was light blue, her breathing too shallow to see, and her clothes were nothing but thin fabric clinging to her frozen frame. He dropped beside her, brushing snow from her face. Her eyes were shut, lips turning purple. But there was a heartbeat, weak, slow, but there. Without hesitation, Jason pulled her into his arms, shielding her from the storm with his body. The suit sensors warned of dangerous temperatures, but he ignored them. She weighed almost nothing. Her body was like ice, but he held her close, speaking softly as he carried her back toward the ship. The winds roared louder. Ice smashed into him. Visibility dropped to zero, and more than once he lost his footing. Still, he didn't let go. He leaned into the storm, one step at a time, pushing through snow and wind and pain. Finally, the dropship came into view, barely visible through the storm. He climbed aboard, cradling the girl like she was the most important thing in the universe. The door sealed behind him with a hiss, and warmth poured in from the ship's heaters. He laid her gently on a padded seat, her breathing shallow but still there. "Stay with me," he whispered, brushing snow from her hair. "Don't quit now." Shh. As he fired up the engines and lifted off, his cums crackled to life. "Captain." Allegrant's voice came through, tense. "Commander, we've got a problem. A ship just came out of cloak. It's right above you." Jason's jaw tightened. Friend or foe? Definitely foe. They're locking weapons. Advanced tech. Doesn't match anything on file. Not pirates. Jason glanced at the girl. Her fingers twitched. Her lips moved but said nothing. "And we make them regret it," he muttered, flipping switches and rerouting power to shields. The dropship shot upward, straight through the last layer of clouds, into open space and right into danger. The enemy. Ship was sleek and sharp, dark like a blade in the night. It had no markings, no broadcast signal, just deadly silence and glowing red weapons. "They're targeting us," Allah said. "We're preparing countermeasures." "No," Jason replied, voice firm. "I've got her. I'm bringing her in. Cover us." The enemy ship opened fire. Laser beams sliced through the void. Jason swerved hard, dodging blasts with sharp, fast moves. The dropship wasn't built for combat, but he flew it like a fighter. His hands moved with practiced ease, sliding between debris fields and chunks of ice that floated just beyond Havenine's orbit. The human warship Valkyrie's Wrath locked onto the enemy and returned fire, cannons lighting up space like a thunderstorm. Jason saw the hangar bay ahead, opening bay doors. Ayla announced, "You're clear, get her home." With one final burst of speed, Jason flew straight into the hangar, sparks flying as he hit the deck and skidded to a stop. Medics rushed. In, he leaped out, carrying the girl straight to the medical bay. She was barely conscious. Her skin felt like frost. Her pulse was faint. "Help her," he ordered. "She's not dying today." The medics nodded, moving fast. Machines hummed. Warmth filled the room. As they worked, Jason stood nearby, silent and watching. He'd pulled her from the jaws of the storm. Now he had to protect her from whatever force had left her there to die. And if that enemy ship came back, he'd be ready. Because whatever she was, whoever she was, he wasn't letting her go. Not now, not ever. Inside the medical bay of the Valkyrie's Wrath, time moved slowly. Machines beeped softly around the blue-skinned girl lying unconscious on the recovery bed. Her fragile body wrapped in thermal layers as warm air flowed around her. Her skin was no longer ice-cold, but the damage from the frost ran deep. A team of doctors and medics worked quietly but quickly, injecting her with nutrients and placing heat pads across her arms and chest. Jason Rourke stood nearby, silent, his arms crossed, watching every detail. He wasn't a doctor, but the tightness in his chest refused to loosen until he saw her open her eyes. Ala stepped into the room, her face tense, a data pad in her hand. "She's stable for now," she said quietly. "But you need to hear this. We scanned her DNA. She's Nearian, old species from the Arthan Belt. Her kind was wiped out during the Zarketh invasions 5 years ago. Nobody reported any survivors. No one." Jason looked down at the girl. She looked peaceful now, but he remembered the storm, the way her body had nearly given up. Then someone wanted her dead. And not just from the cold. That ship in orbit didn't show up by accident. Ala nodded grimly. He ran scans on it. The tech is advanced stealth systems, plasma cannons, grav beams, and it didn't follow any known fleet patterns. This wasn't pirates. This was something worse. Someone wanted to make sure she never got found. Jason's jaw tightened. "We did." Suddenly a weak sound came from the bed. The girl moved slightly, her fingers twitching. Her eyes fluttered open, purple, glowing faintly, confused and afraid. Jason stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "Hey," he said softly. "You're safe. You're on a human ship. We found you on Havenine. Do you remember anything?" Her lips parted, her voice was hoarse. "You came. It's for me." Jason nodded. "Yeah, we don't leave people behind." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "They killed my people." She whispered, "They chased me. They ... They said I held the key to something ancient, something locked away under the ice. I ran. I didn't want them to use it. I didn't even understand what it was." Jason's eyes narrowed. "What kind of key?" She looked scared. "A memory. Code. It's in me. They burned it into my mind with machines. They called it the last cry of the first flame." Ala turned pale. "That's a myth. Lost Niari weapon. Rumors said it could destroy entire fleets with a signal burst." Jason looked back at the girl. "Now you're the only one left who holds it." The girl tried to sit up, but winced from the pain. Jason gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't move. You've been through too much. Rest. We'll handle the rest." But rest would have to wait. Moments later, the alarms across the ship blared. Ala checked her datapad. "They're back. That same enemy ship just warped in, and it brought friends. 3 more vessels. They're demanding we surrender her." Jason stood up, eyes hard. "Then we give them our answer." The Valkyrie's Wrath shifted into battle mode. Sirens echoed across every hall as crew members rushed to stations. Shields charged, weapons powered up, and the bridge lit up with red warning lights. Jason returned to command, barking orders as enemy ships closed in fast. Outside, in the blackness of space, the 4 enemy ships moved like predators, their weapons glowing red, their engines silent but deadly. The first shot came quick, a plasma beam that struck the Valkyrie's forward shield. Sparks flew, but the human ship held firm. Jason returned fire, unleashing a wave of railgun slugs and missile barrages. Space lit up with fire and fury. Fighters launched from the lower bays, engaging the smaller enemy drones that zipped like insects around the battlefield. The sky outside turned into a storm of explosions and laser fire. On the medical deck, the girl gripped the sheets, feeling the ship shake around her. For a moment, fear returned to her eyes, but then she remembered Jason's words, "We don't leave people behind." She breathed slowly, letting the warmth of that promise calm her. On the bridge, Jason stayed focused. "Target their engines," he ordered, We don't need to destroy them, just stop them from chasing us. The ship's cannons shifted, firing with brutal precision. One enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire. Another spun out of control after its thrusters were hit. But the largest enemy vessel moved in close, powering a massive grav beam aimed straight at the Valkyrie's hull. "Brace!" Jason shouted. The beam struck, pulling the ship downward, dragging it toward a nearby moon's gravity well. Lights flickered, metal groaned. Jason stood firm. "Redirect all power to engines, full thrust, get us out of the well." The ship roared against the pull, engines flaring. The Valkyrie groaned under pressure, but slowly rose, breaking free of the beam, just as Alla launched a counterstrike that disabled the enemy weapon. One by one, the enemy ships fell back, damaged and limping. Jason stared at the final screen. They'll be back, but so will we. The girl had survived. The battle was won for now, but this fight was only beginning. Deep in the silent hours after the battle, the corridors of the Valkyrie's Wrath pulsed with a low hum. The crew moving carefully through dim lights and flickering consoles as engineers repaired damaged panels and systems. Sparks flew from broken wires. Medics helped the wounded. The scent of scorched metal lingered in the air. Jason Rourke walked slowly through the halls, his mind full of thoughts. The girl, the key, the myth, none of it made sense yet, but what he did know was that someone powerful wanted her erased from the galaxy, that made her worth protecting. When he reached the medical bay, he found her sitting upright, wrapped in thick blankets. Eyes clearer now, but still haunted. Her name was Kailari. She looked at him as he entered and gave a weak smile. "I heard, ... you stayed in the storm for me." Jason shrugged. "Didn't seem right to leave you out there." She looked down. "I didn't think anyone would." "Come, I thought it was over." Jason sat beside her. "It isn't. But you need to tell me everything. No more guessing. What exactly did they do to you?" Kailari hesitated, then nodded. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "It started when the war ended. My people didn't surrender to the Zarkith, like the others. We hid something. A weapon, yes, but also a memory. It was sealed away under our world, buried deep in the ice. Only the High Guardians knew how to unlock it. When they came and killed everyone, they scanned my mind. I don't know how, but I was the last left who had the Guardian blood. They forced it into me. The code, I didn't ask for it." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted to survive." Jason's voice softened. "What happens if they get the code?" She looked up, eyes wide. "They win. They burn worlds, tear ships apart. This weapon, it doesn't fire bullets or lasers, it's sound. A wave. A scream from the ancient stars that kills machines and shuts down minds. It's ... too much." Jason leaned back, silent for a moment. Then he stood. "We need to get you off this ship. I'll come again. In numbers we can't fight. We have to move you to Terra Prime secure labs, deep shields, thousands of soldiers. You'll be safe there." Kalari reached for his arm. "But what if I'm the danger? What if this thing inside me wakes up?" Jason looked her straight in the eyes. "Then I'll be the one standing in front of it." Before anything more could be said, Ayla called over the comms commander. "There's a transmission you need to see." Jason left the room and headed to the command deck. The message played across the screen, showed a dark figure, masked in shadows, with glowing red eyes. His voice was low and sharp. "To the humans of the Valkyrie's Wrath, you've taken something that does not belong to you. Turn the Nyari child, or watch your colonies fall. You have 24 hours. Then static." Jason stared at the screen for a long time, turned. "To Ayla, prepare the jump drive. We leave in 10. Direct course for Terra Prime, and double patrols on every level. Nobody touches her." Ayla nodded, her jaw tight. "You think they'll come before we jump?" Jason's eyes narrowed. "They're already here. We're just waiting for the dark." Hours passed as the crew prepared. Repairs moved quickly. Fuel cells were reloaded. Extra fighters were launched and hovered outside the ship, scanning for cloaked threats. Kalari was moved to a secure chamber near the engine core, guarded by 2 armed Marines at all times. Jason checked in on her once, handing her a datapad filled with soft music and old Earth stories. She thanked him, a hint of calm showing in her voice. But peace didn't last. Just as the jump core reached full charge, warning lights flashed. Across the bridge, Alice shouted, "Multiple warp signatures. Flat. No, 6 ships. Closing fast." Jason rushed forward. "Shields up. Get those fighters home now." The enemy ships tore out of warp, surrounding the Valkyrie in a tight net. Their design was sleek and unnatural, smooth like liquid metal. No windows, no lights, just silent death. One opened fire, striking the hull. The human warship shook violently. Jason didn't wait. "Fire all batteries. Break the circle." Lasers and missiles roared from the ship's sides, smashing into 2 enemy vessels and sending one spinning out of control. But the others closed in tighter. One of them released a glowing sphere that floated slowly toward the hull. Before anyone could stop it, it exploded in a burst of red light, causing half the ship's systems to blink out. Lights dimmed, gravity flickered, life support weakened, boarders incoming. Allah yelled. Jason grabbed a rifle and ran. Enemy. Boarding pods smashed into the outer decks. Strange black-armored figures poured out, fast and silent, moving with unnatural speed. Jason led the defense team, firing shot after shot, covering the corridor with smoke and plasma bursts. Shook with battle, Kalari, in her room, curled up in the corner as alarms wailed and distant gunfire echoed around her. The Marines outside her door shouted orders and took positions. The ship became a battleground, humans fighting not just to survive, but to protect something greater than themselves. And through it all, Jason's voice echoed across coms.com. But fierce. They want her. They'll have to walk through me. The halls of the Valkyrie's wrath turned into a war zone as the enemy soldiers spread like shadows, cutting through corridors with silent precision. He carried weapons unlike anything seen before, blades that shimmered with energy. Rifles that fired bursts of sound instead of light. The Marines fought hard, every inch of metal ground bought with blood and bravery, but the invaders kept coming. Jason moved through the chaos like a storm. His rifle roared with each squeeze of the trigger, his mind sharp, his focus clear. He barked orders, helping squads regroup, pushing back the tide. He took hits, slammed into walls, slid across, bloodied. Floors, but never stopped. Every step he took was closer to Kailari. Deep inside the ship, Kailari sat curled behind a power console, her arms wrapped around her knees as the sounds of war thundered outside her door. She could hear shouting, boots on metal, the buzzing hum of weapons firing. The guards who protected her stood firm, their faces set, their orders clear hold until the end. But even they could feel the fear rising. She had started to remember more flashes of a chamber under the ice, a voice speaking ancient words, machines linking to her mind. It wasn't just a weapon she carried. It was a message from something far older. She tried to block it out, but the pressure in her head grew stronger with each passing second. Back near the engine deck, Jason fought alongside 2 Marines, pushing through a ruined section filled with smoke and sparks. He tossed a grenade around a corner and rushed. After the blast, he found a group of enemy soldiers trying to cut through a sealed bulkhead. One of them looked up and fired a pulse shot that struck Jason's shoulder, spinning him to the floor. Gritting his teeth, he rolled and fired, dropping the attacker with a burst to the chest. He climbed to his feet, ignoring the pain. He had no time for weakness. He reached the secured chamber and found it under siege. Enemy troops were already tearing through the final barrier with some kind of plasma saw. The guards had fallen. Only one still breathed, slumped against the wall, blood trailing from his chest. Jason rushed in just as the final piece of the door fell away. One of the dark soldiers stepped through, raising a blade toward Kailari. Jason shot him in the back and kept moving, firing non-stop, each step forcing the invaders back. Kailari looked up in shock as Jason stood between her and the attackers, smoke rising from his weapon. He knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but I feel it. Something is waking up inside me." "Then we need to get you out of here now," he said, helping her up. "Stay close." Together, they moved fast, dodging fallen beams and burning wires. Jason protected her like a wall of fire, taking out enemies ahead and shielding her from blasts. They reached the bridge hallway, but another wave of soldiers blocked the path. Jason pulled her behind a wall. "You trust me?" he asked quickly. She nodded without thinking. "Then hold on." Pulled a charge from his belt, set the timer, and rolled it down the corridor. The explosion tore through the enemy line, clearing the path for a few precious seconds. He pulled Kailari forward, running through smoke and fire. They reached the bridge as Ayla shouted, "The jump core is almost ready. Shields are we need to go now." Jason pushed Kailari toward her. "Get her strapped in and locked down. Do it now." Ayla guided the girl to a safe seat and sealed the harness as Jason took the command chair. The screen showed enemy ships closing in, preparing a final strike. One of them powered a massive weapon too strong to block. Jason gritted his teeth. "Jump now." "But we're not aligned." "Jump now." Ayla slammed the control. The stars outside twisted, bent, and vanished as the ship entered jump space. The pressure knocked everyone back. Systems blinked. For a moment, everything was still. The Valkyrie's wrath tore through the fabric of space, leaving the battlefield behind. Inside, the crew slowly caught their breath. Jason leaned forward. Staring at the screens, they were out. Alive for now. He looked at Kailari. She was staring into nothing, tears on her cheeks. "I remembered the voice," she whispered. "The one that gave me the code. It wasn't a person. It was something deep in the ice, something old and lonely." Jason stepped closer. Again. "You control it?" "I don't know," she said, "but I think it's trying to help me." Jason nodded. "Then we'll help it too. Whatever this thing is, whatever they want from you, they're not going to get it. We'll find a way to fight back." Outside the ship, space rolled on in silence. But far behind them, the enemy fleet had already started moving again, tracking their trail. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The Valkyrie's wrath tore through jump space like a wounded animal racing through a storm. Systems flickering, engines straining, and hull groaning under the stress of a sudden and unaligned jump. Inside, the crew worked without pause, sealing, burst pipes, resetting failed systems, and treating the wounded. Jason stood over the star map with Ayla, sweat on his forehead, his shoulder bandaged but still throbbing. "How far did we make it?" he asked. Ayla tapped the screen, zooming out to show a spinning sector of stars. "We jumped blind." Number. Fixed coordinates. This looks like we landed in Sector 198, uncharted edge space, dead zones, sensor shadows. No signal beacons, no colonies. It's quiet. Jason exhaled slowly. "Quiet's good. We'll catch our breath here." In the secure medical chamber, Kailari lay resting, her face pale, her breathing steady but shallow. The stress had triggered something inside her. Sensors around her bed picked up unusual readings in energy spikes that came and went like a heartbeat. Low-frequency pulses that didn't match any known tech. Dr. Levin, the ship's lead scientist, ran constant scans, muttering to himself as new patterns formed on the monitors. "This isn't just memory or data," he said to Jason when he entered. "It's a living signal. It changes with her thoughts. It reacts to fear, to pain, even to dreams. Whatever they put in hers last cry. It's not just a weapon. It's a mind." Jason looked at the girl through the glass. "Can it be removed?" Dr. Levin shook his head. "I don't think so. And if it could, I don't think she'd survive it." Jason looked away, jaw tight. "Then we protect her. She's not a weapon. She's a person." Just as he turned to leave, the ship's alarms blared again, echoing like a siren in a tunnel. Ayla's voice came over the intercom. "Jason, you need to see this now." "Ow!" He ran back to the bridge and saw it on the screen, an enemy signal, distant but locked on. One of the dark ships had followed their trail. Not the full fleet, just a single hunter, sleek and silent, moving through the black with deadly patience. "They found us," Ayla said, "but not all of them. They're testing us, watching." Jason nodded. "Then we make sure they don't report back." He grabbed the mic. "All crew 2 stations. We're not running, not this time." The ship went dark for a moment as power was redirected to weapons and shields. Jason ordered a full sensor sweep, mapping every asteroid and gravity shadow in the sector. They planned a trap lure, the hunter close, fake a power loss, then strike. From cover, fighters were launched, hiding behind drifting rock clusters. The Valkyrie slowed. Lights dimmed, giving the image of a damaged ship. The hunter ship took the bait. It moved in slow, cautious, its weapons charging. Jason gave the signal. The ambush began with a burst of railgun fire from the hidden fighters. Slamming into the enemy ship's flank, explosions rippled across its hull. Valkyrie fired next, unleashing a barrage of missiles that lit up space like fireworks. But the hunter ship was fast. It dodged, twisted, and returned fire, cutting through two fighters with deadly blasts. It turned toward the Valkyrie, charging a massive beam. Jason stayed calm, steady, ... Hold fire. Wait for the core to glow. Now, Allah fired the EMP cannon, striking the enemy ship's beam core just as it reached full charge. The resulting explosion tore through the ship's systems, cracking open the hull like glass. Flames burst from within.
Ow.
Jason ordered one. Final strike. The forward plasma lance pierced the enemy ship, splitting it in half. The wreck drifted silently into the dark. Cheers rang through the ship, but Jason didn't celebrate. They'll know that one didn't come back, he said quietly. They'll send more. Down in her room, Kailari sat up slowly, the strange glow in her eyes returning. Jason visited her soon after, and she looked at him with fear. I saw it, she said. In my sleep. The hunter. I knew it was coming. Jason nodded. Then whatever's inside you is trying to protect you now. She took his hand, showed me more. A place, a planet covered in blue fire. I think. That's where the first flame is buried. I think. If we get there first, we can shut it down for good. Jason stepped back, thoughtful. You sure? She nodded. It's not just a weapon. It's alive. And it's scared. Jason looked to Ayla. Plot a course. Get us there fast, before they do. The mission had changed. It was no longer about running or hiding. It was about reaching the source, about stopping something ancient, before it fell into the wrong hands. The Valkyrie's wrath turned in space, engines burning bright. Cutting through the dark once more toward a fire that had waited too long to be remembered. The stars rushed past as the Valkyrie's wrath cut through deep space. Its crew racing against time toward the coordinates Kailari had seen in her dream-an old planet hidden in ancient maps. Buried in blue flame, unknown to most of the galaxy, Jason stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the growing light ahead. The closer they came, the more intense the readings grew. Radiation spiked, gravity warped, and the sensors began to glitch. Kalari remained silent most of the time, her eyes glowing faintly, the strange power inside her guiding them without words, as Jason visited her often, trying to ease her mind. But she had grown quieter, as if something inside her was getting louder. When the planet finally came into view, it looked nothing like they expected. It was wrapped in thick blue clouds that flashed with lightning, its surface cracked and burning from within, as though fire lived under the crust. Ancient structures floated above the ground ruins, temples and broken towers that defied gravity, held aloft by invisible forces. Jason gave the order to enter orbit, and a landing team prepared to drop. He chose a squad of 10, including Ayla and Dr. Levin, and brought Kailari along. They landed on a large stone platform surrounded by burning rivers and glowing crystals. The heat was intense but bearable, and the ground felt alive under their boots, like it pulsed with energy. Kailari led them forward, walking without fear, toward a great archway carved into a cliff. The symbols glowed as she approached, reacting to her presence. The door opened on its own, and they stepped into a massive chamber filled with light and echoes. Inside, machines unlike any seen before rose from the floor, smooth round, pulsing with blue light. The central pillar stood at the center, and Kailari walked toward it slowly, drawn to it by something deeper than memory. Jason tried to stop her, but she shook her head. This is where it began. I need to touch it. As her hand touched the pillar, the chamber came to life. The lights brightened and a low hum filled the air. A projection burst from the pillar, an old being made of light and dust, its voice soft and deep. It spoke a forgotten language, but Kailari understood every word. She turned to the others. It says the first flame was never meant to be used. It was made to protect, not destroy. But over time, those who found it turned it into a weapon. It hid itself to escape them. It chose me to guard the last key. Suddenly the ground shook, and alarms rang out from the Valkyrie in orbit. Isla shouted into her comms. Multiple enemy ships just dropped out of warp. They found us. Jason cursed and looked at Kailari. Can you shut it down now? She nodded but looked afraid. Yes, but I need time, and I need to be alone. Jason gripped her shoulders. We'll hold them off. Whatever happens, finish it. He turned to the squad. Back to the surface, set up defense lines. This place is the end of the road, and we're not letting them through. As they reached the surface, enemy dropships screamed across the sky, releasing dark troops that fell like shadows across the burning fields. The humans spread out, taking cover behind rocks and crystal structures. The battle began fast and violent. Plasma shots lit up the smoke. Jason fought with everything he had, his rifle glowing red from overuse, his armor scorched and cracked. Alla took command of the left flank, guiding the defense and calling in air support from the Valkyrie. The enemy was stronger than ever before, faster, more ruthless, as if they knew the prize was close. But the humans held the line, inch by inch, refusing to fall back. Behind them, deep in the chamber, Kailari stood at the pillar, eyes shut, her hands glowing. The voice inside her guided her, not in words but in feeling. She reached deeper into the memory of the ancient flame, into the core of what it was meant to be. Her body shook, energy flowing through her veins like fire. She saw visions of worlds burning, of life fading, of the silence that would follow if she failed. She screamed, not from pain but from the weight of it all. And the machine answered. The blue light in the chamber brightened to blinding white. The energy rushed up into the sky, blasting through the clouds. On the surface, the enemy ships paused, sensors blaring as their systems crashed. Jason looked up just in time to see the light pierce the sky. Then everything went still. The enemy forces stopped moving. Their weapons froze. Their ships went dark, and one by one, they fell. Kailari stepped out of the chamber, her face calm, her eyes dim again. The fire had left her. It's done, she said softly. Jason caught her before she collapsed. He held her close, looking at the now quiet battlefield. The fight was over for now. The cost had only begun to show. ChatGPT said. Smoke rose gently from the scorched ground, and the battlefield was silent, except for the sound of wind moving through broken stone. The enemy troops lay scattered across the burning plains, their dark armor cracked and lifeless, their ships drifting in the sky like dead birds. The blue fire that once raged across the planet had faded, replaced by a soft glow pulsing from deep underground. Jason stood still for a moment, letting it all sink in: the battle, the victory, the loss. His armor was burned, his face bruised, but his heart was steady. Kailari lay in his arms, unconscious but breathing, her skin pale, her body weak after, channeling the ancient power. He called for a medic, and the crew rushed in with a stretcher. They carried her gently toward the shuttle while Jason followed closely, never taking his eyes off her. Above them, the Valkyrie's Wrath lowered from orbit, its hull still smoking from earlier battles. The crew had survived, but barely. Once everyone was on board, the ship lifted off and left the ruined planet behind. The journey back through space was quiet. No more enemy signals, no more alarms. Just the deep silence that follows after something terrible has passed. Jason sat beside Kailari in the medical wing, watching over her as the machines checked her vitals. She didn't wake for 3 days, and during that time, Jason barely slept. He thought about the flame, about the war, about everything they had lost and everything they had saved. When Kailari finally opened her eyes, her first word was his name. He leaned forward, his tired eyes warming with relief. She smiled weakly. Is it over? Jason nodded. You stopped it? You saved all of us. She looked out the small window at the stars beyond. I can't feel it anymore. The voice, the heat, ... It's gone. Jason gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it means you're free now. She closed her eyes and let out a soft breath. But at what cost? Jason didn't answer. There were no easy answers now. In the days that followed, messages began to come in from across the galaxy. News of the enemy's defeat spread fast. Human forces, inspired by the stand at the Flame Planet, rose up in other sectors. Ships that once fled now returned to fight. Allies once silent offered help again. The tide was turning. The enemy, for all their strength and secrets, had lost their most powerful weapon, and worse, they had lost the fear they once inspired. The galaxy was waking up. At a memorial service held on the Valkyrie's observation deck, Jason stood in front of the gathered crew, his uniform cleaned, his voice steady. He spoke of courage, of sacrifice, of those who gave their lives to hold the line. And when he spoke of Kailari, everyone fell silent. She carried a power meant to end everything, he said. But she chose to end the war instead. She gave us a future. After the speech, the stars outside dimmed for a moment as the ship's lights flickered in a respectful tribute. Later that night, Kailari and Jason stood alone in the engine bay, watching the reactor pulse with steady light. She was still weak, walking slowly, but her eyes had strength again. What now? She asked. Jason looked out at the stars. Now we rebuild. We help the ones who couldn't fight. We warn the ones who haven't seen the war yet. If they come again. He paused and gave her a small smile. We remind them what it means to face humans. Kailari nodded. I'm staying. I want to help. I want to protect others like you protected me. Jason smiled wider. Good. We could use you. The two stood in silence, side by side, the ship humming quietly around them. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. The flame was gone, the war was far from over, but something stronger had taken root: hope. And for the first time in a long while, Jason believed in what came next. Across the stars, people would speak of the girl who burned like fire and the human who wouldn't let her die in the cold. They would tell stories of the battle on the blue-flamed world, of the last cry that shook the enemy, and the day humanity rose not just to survive, but to lead. And as the Valkyrie's wrath flew forward into the stars once more, no one watching from below would ever doubt again what it meant when a human said, "We don't leave our own behind."